Hey guys, what's up? Today it's finally time to show you the Hidden Gems on the PlayStation 2. It is my all-time favorite system, man, and this is a system, a console that I consider to be as the father of all Hidden Gems because there were so many games released for it and half of them were lost in obscurity. We can't let that happen, so here are my 10 recommendations for the PlayStation 2. So let's begin! Number 10. Kinetica. Kinetica is a very obscure game that is exclusive to the PlayStation 2 only in North America. Ha! 5 years ago it was digitally re-released on the PlayStation 4. It's an extremely fast-paced racing game that's obviously futuristic, and you won't believe who made it. Santa Monica Studios, creators of God of War. Not only that, the game's engine was also named Kinetica and was used precisely for the first two God of War games. Anyway, it's basically a competition between several races in space. These races can equip kinetic suits that basically turns them into human motorcycles. Of course, the tracks are visually stunning and are full of power-ups to make you even faster. So like I said, it's too fast but easy to control, so if you're into really quick racing games, this is a must-play. Number 9. Teen Titans. I cared nothing about the animated series when it came out, and I still don't nowadays. However, the game's a completely different story. I first played it on the GameCube with my nephew, and we had a blast. But one day I got a PS2 batch with several games, this one included. It only came with the manual and the disc, sadly. The point is, this PS2 version was just as good. Not much to say about the story and characters, only that you can choose between all 5 of them. They play very differently, so it might be a good idea to check them all out at first. Obviously, the game has a local multiplayer mode, so playing it with somebody else was a blast. Forget about the cartoon, man. Check this game out if you like 3D beat-em-ups, as it's definitely one of the best ones I've played of its kind. Number 8. Nightshade. Believe it or not, this is a spin-off of the popular Shinobi series. It was released back in 2003 and it's still an exclusive on the PS2. It's also a sequel to that Shinobi game, which is also on the PS2. Developed by Overworks, now basically one of the many Sega divisions, it's a hack and slash game that plays very similar to Shinobi, but with a female protagonist named Hibana and a much faster gameplay. The goal of the game is to have Hibana eliminate the evil bastards from the evil Nakatomi Corporation. That and also to find some shards from a cursed sword. Missions are pretty linear most of the time, having you defeating the enemies and fighting a boss at the end. Sounds repetitive, but hack and slash games are always like this, aren't they? I first met Hibana when she appeared in Project Cross Zone 2, a gigantic crossover that I love on the 3DS. Unfortunately, Nightshade on the PS2 has become somewhat rare and expensive, costing almost what a new modern game costs. Number 7. Mobile Light Force 2. This is actually the very first Castle Shikigami game. It's just stupid-ass XS Games changed the name to make it look like a sequel to Mobile Light Force on the PS1, which is actually Gone Bird, and the games have nothing to do with each other. Man, what a freaking mess! And what pisses me off the most is that they reused the same ultra-generic cover from the first game on the PS1 with those 3 girls that aren't even in the game! In Europe, it was abbreviated to MLF2. Yeah! Practically MILF 2! Whatever, man. Just ignore the name and the cover and just think it's Castle Shikigami 1, alright? And it's a great game, just like its 2 sequels. They're all vertical shoot-em-ups with great controls and excellent pacing. This one is a direct port from the arcade in Japan, and over there, it was released on several different consoles. We only got the PS2 version. It's called Castle Shikigami because, like many shoot-em-ups, it's all about multiplying your points. When in Shikigami mode, you can increase this multiplier to gather all items dropped by the enemies. It's a pretty badass game, so I hope you can find a way to play it, even if it's on another system. And now that I've mentioned its sequel, Number 6. Castle Shikigami II. It's a direct sequel to the previous game, but now it has more playable characters. And once again, it was released on the arcade, then ported to everywhere, but we only got the PS2 version. Thankfully, as you saw in the cover when I showed it, it was localized as Castle Shikigami II. XS Games finally realized their brutally idiotic mistake from before. Nice. This game is just as good as its predecessor, but I actually like it more because not only does it have slightly better visuals, I also think the controls work better. Now, the first game under its ridiculous name can still be found at a reasonable price nowadays. This one, however, is more expensive and rarer, but it shouldn't be crazy expensive, even with the pandemic. Just don't let scalpers rip you off on this. That, or you could just emulate it like I did. Number 5. Radiata Stories. I wasn't sure if I wanted to include this one as I don't really see it as a hidden gem, and if you're a fan of my main channel, Erick Landon RPG, you've probably seen me covering in the underrated section. But this second channel is not for niche JRPG gamers like us, so to most gamers out there, Radiata Stories is practically a hidden gem. Developed by Tri-Ace, creators of Star Ocean and Valkyrie Profile, it's a very unique action RPG. I know by this battle footage it doesn't really look unique, even though the combat is still good. Its uniqueness comes from the fact that you can recruit almost every single inhabitant of the city of Radiata. That's right, they can join your party, but recruiting each one of them takes up different requirements, which is the fun part of the game. After a certain point, the story branches in two paths. In one of them, you can leave the city and recruit most of the non-human characters instead. Story is great here too, with some comedy involved, but it gets serious when it needs to. This is a must-play in my opinion, and overall an extremely fun game. Number 4. Arcana Heart. This is a fighting game developed by Yuki Enterprise, whose members worked on Samurai Shodown 5. Actually, the game's controls feel kinda similar to the Showdown series, especially the 5th one. Don't waste your time with the story, cause it's all about the magical girls that can communicate with beings called the Arcana. You're here for the combat, which is actually the spotlight. It only uses 4 buttons, 3 of them being for different attacks that can lead to combos. The 4th one is for homing attacks and spells, which involve the Arcana. In fact, once you select your character, you also need to choose the Arcana so they can have their own special moves and homing attacks. I recommend this game if you're into fighting games with that unique perk to them, and also if you don't mind the lowlies and the so-called maidens yelling their guts out. Number 3. Grimoire. I'm glad we arrived at this masterpiece, cause if we're talking about unique, this one takes the cake. It's a cross-genre game, but at its core, it's a tower defense. It is the second game developed by famous company Vanillaware, although it was the first one they released. You control Lilith Blan in a quest to become a magician at a magic school. Though sooner than later, she realizes she's trapped in a loop, repeating the same 5 days over and over. Your goal is to find out what's going on by participating into tower defense battles with your grimoires. Each of these magical books can summon different creatures to fight, defend, or gather mana, so your runes can keep summoning them. Usually missions revolve around destroying the enemy runes, defending yours, or merely surviving, so it spices things up to avoid being repetitive. Overall, it's a fantastic game that I wish could get a modern re-release, if at least digitally, so more people can play it. Number 2. Eternal Poison. As a fan of my channel, you're sick of hearing me talk about this game, and probably the next one too. It's a grid-based strategy RPG with several characters from its 4 different routes, each with their own protagonist. Beat the game with all 3 of them and you'll unlock the 4th protagonist. Special requirements need to be met to unlock a 5th protagonist, but that's a spoiler. Everyone is searching for the Eternal Poison and Princess Lenarge, as they seem to be deeply connected, but your characters do it for many different reasons. It's a very gothic style video game with beautiful graphics and artwork. Battles are simple, yet with some unique perks, like the ability to capture monsters with a cursed book to have them fight by your side. Or you can also recruit mercenaries in town for the same purposes. It's an excellent strategy RPG, criminally overlooked, but unfortunately very expensive and hard to find nowadays. Either you pay the price or, emulation! Number 1? Of course, Lancer Heritage of War, man! I wanted to include all 3 PS2 Lancer games here, but I guess I'll settle down with this masterpiece, one of my all-time favorite RPGs, but you know that already if you're a fan of my main channel. Real-time strategy RPG with 5 different story arcs, all direct sequels to one another, including the 5th and main one. Greatly written story full of political drama, intrigue, tragedy, and crop starvation for all its kingdoms. In battle, you can only directly control your main character. You can move them around freely and attack as in an action RPG. Your party members will move on their own unless you pause the game to give them orders in the menu screen, which is where the real-time strategy part comes in. Almost every mission will have you doing something entirely different, adding a lot of variety to its gameplay. I hope you can find a way to play this excellent RPG, as it is definitely one of the best on the PlayStation 2. Alright guys, those were my picks for today's video. If you know more hidden gems on the mighty PlayStation 2, let me know in the comment section below. Thanks for watching, don't forget to subscribe and share this video with your friends. See you next time!